Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parvaraj, Akacharya, Ashtavadhara, Rishi, Srimad Divine Grace, Abhay, Charinar, Avinda Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki, Iskon Sanstapik Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Shri Jagannath Prabhu Baladev Ki Jai. Krishna. Hare Krishna. So today we're studying from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, entitled The Process of Devotional Service. And we're going to read a few verses, starting from text 132. Nama Sankirtanam Shriman Mathura Mandale Stiti Nama Sankirtanam Shrimam Mathura Mandale Stiti Nama Sankirtanam Shriman Mathura Mandale Stiti Nama Sankirtanam Shriman Mathura Mandale Stiti. Nama Sankirtanam Shriman Mathura Mandale Stiti.
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Mathura Mandale Stitihi
Mandale Stiti
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Mathura Mandale Stitihi
Mathura Mandale Stiti
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Mathura Mandale Stiti
Mathura Mandale Stiti
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Mathura Mandale Stiti
Mathura Mandale Stiti
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Nama Sankirtanam Shriman
Mathura Mandale Stiti
Mathura Mandale Stiti Nama Sankirtanam
Nama Sankirtanam,
chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra
chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Shriman Mathura Mandale
Srimad Mathura Mandale.
in Mathura, where Krishna specifically performs his pastimes.
In Mathura, where Krishna specifically performs his pastimes.
Stitihi, a residence. Translation. One should congregationally chant the holy name of the Lord and reside in Vrindavan. Please repeat. One should congregationally chant
One should congregationally chant
the holy name of the Lord
the holy name of the Lord
and reside in Vrindavan.
and reside in Vrindavan.
Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Shri Gauda Mandala Bhumi Yeba Yani Chintamani Tarahoya Brajabhumi Vas. One who understands the transcendental nature of Navadvip and its surrounding area, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enacted his pastimes, resides always in Vrindavan. Similarly, living in Jagannath Puri is as good as living in Vrindavan. The conclusion is that Navadvip Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham, and Vrindavan Dham are identical. However, if one goes to Mathura Mandala Bhumi for sense gratification or to make a livelihood, he commits an offence and is condemned. Whoever does so must be penalized in the next life by becoming a hog or a monkey in Vrindavan Dham. After taking on such a body, the offender is liberated in the next life. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that residing in Vrindavan with a view to enjoy sense gratification surely leads a so-called devotee to a lower species. Nama Sankirtanam Shriman Mathura Mandale Stiti. One should congregationally chant the holy name of the Lord and reside in Vrindavan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. In this section of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya is explaining the 64 principles or activities of devotional service, and they've been categorized in different sections. There's the 10 do's, 10 don'ts. Then it describes 35 items, of which one contains 4 additional archana activities, so that takes us to 39. So adding those together, we're at 59. And then there's the 5 very, very important principles. 2 of them are mentioned in this verse, and they've been repeated in different verses, so you've already had them in previous classes. What are the other 3? Out of the 5?
Deity worship.
Deity worship.
Hearing Bhagavatam.
Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam.
Association.
And association of devotees. These 5 things. Mentioned Yes, text 128. One should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, reside at Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and veneration. The wonderful aspect of these five that they're all very closely connected, aren't they? They're all very closely connected. Because there's a principle, association of devotees. Where are we going to find devotees? They're going to gather in holy, sacred places, places which spiritual consciousness is uppermost. And what will they be doing in those places? They will be focused on the center of activities in those places, which is the lordships, Krishna in deity forms. And together they will chant the names of Krishna in front of the deities, congregationally chanting Nama Sankirtanam. And they will only want to talk about Krishna, hearing and describing and discussing the wonderful activities of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So all these five go very closely together, but they're being analysed in different ways. And here it's interesting that Lord Chaitanya is putting these two together. One should reside in Vrindavan, and one should congregationally chant the holy name of the Lord. And the indication there is that, yes, it is very special to reside in these holy places. But we do so, we don't just go to the Tirtha to take a bath. That can be done anywhere on the Ganges or anywhere on the Jamuna. We go to the holy places to associate with the sages, and for us that is our other fellow Vaishnavas, so that together we can glorify Krishna, Nama Sankirtan. We can engage in the congregational chanting of the holy name. So this is the prime purpose of our visits and stays in the holy dham. So when we get together there, we are meant to focus. I think it is becoming... Vrindavan is always Vrindavan. Mayapur is always Mayapur. But perhaps for some of us who visited there many years ago and saw the beautiful pastoral situations of our temples, find it harder to remind ourselves of that focus. But now our holy places, they're very busy. There are many buildings that are very recent. There's many activities that one can engage in there. There's the hospitality is so much improved. The facilities for enjoying prasadam are much improved. And it might be easier now to visit and stay for a period or for a longer time and perhaps relax in one's mind. Perhaps allowing a little bit of, this is quite a nice holiday, to come to one's thoughts and to think that, yeah, this is a great way to spend, and it's better than other holidays, you can say. No one's saying. But when we're in the dham, it has such potency that it really feels that while we are there, within these very special embassies of the spiritual world, positioned on our miserable little planet, that we can take full advantage, and we really do our utmost to just think, this is the period, this is the time when everything else has to get out of my mind. I cannot allow my mind to wander onto sense gratification and onto all the silliness that I often allow it accommodation. Now it's time just to really be 100% focused on absorbing myself in, say, in Mayapur, that I'm here in the place of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya just a few hundred years ago, where Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda and the other members of the Panchatattva danced through this area, chanting and, you know, filling the air with the holy name. And who can imagine the transcendental atmosphere that creates? And when we meditate on the dams in those ways, we do enter into that spirit, and we do get a sense of that incredible potency that exists within the dam. Something that just allows us to feel, I just want to be cleansed by all of this. That is why I'm here. I'm here to be cleansed of all my material thinking. I'm here just to remember that I have no other meaning to my existence other than to fall at the feet of the deities, to beg their lordships that please accept me as your eternal servant. I've been wandering elsewhere in this world, engaged in so many other activities, but now I'm home. I'm back where I belong. So these become our meditations when we enter these very special holy places. And it says here that we should understand that Navadvip Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham, Vrindavan Dham, they're all identical. They're all eternal places of the pastimes of the Lord, situated within our midst. That is incredible mercy from the Supreme Lord, that as conditioned souls, as souls who turned away from Krishna, wanted to be independent, we begged, in one sense, we begged for a realm that we could forget Krishna, not have to worry about being a servant. A place where we could try to be the master, the controller, the enjoyer for ourselves. We begged for that position. And we have set up all of human society, practically speaking, on that basis. More and more, particularly in this age of Kali. But still, Krishna places these spiritual abodes in our midst so that there is a chance that we can take advantage of them and remember our real existence, and not just remember but be attracted to the kind of loving enjoyment that we can have when we just give up our notions of material life and allow ourselves just to think of ourselves, I exist for Krishna's pleasure. And even more merciful than the Lord descending and creating these eternal abodes, these eternal dams, is the work of his pure devotees. Particularly when they take the spirit, the manifestation of these dams, and placed them all over the world. Now, there's only one personality that I know who really took up that cause on behalf of Lord Chaitanya and truly brought these abodes of Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri to so many places outside of Bharat Bhumi, outside of India, places that were just lost in the hedonism of Kali Yuga. 3 weeks ago, I was in New York City for a conference, a science consciousness conference, and it was being held at New York University, which is near Greenwich Village, lower part of Manhattan. And I was fortunate to have some accommodation on the Lower East Side. So then in the mornings, I was able to walk about 20 minutes from where I was staying, past First Avenue into Second Avenue. And just where I would be crossing the road there, walking up to number 26, Second Avenue. Matchless gifts. Hare Krishna Temple. Most days, when I was at that time, it may not have been open, but on the Sunday morning, there was devotees had been in there and they'd been chanting. So it was just wonderful to go into that space, tiny space. How many have been to 26 Second Avenue? It's an incredible tirtha. We're very fortunate to have it in our possession for this time. Now, all around things have changed. Big buildings have come up all around. The place has become gentrified. It is not quite the state that it was when Prabhupada was there 60 years ago. It's still a mess. It's still New York. It's still the heavy modes of passion and ignorance surround that. But we can't imagine how different it was for Srila Prabhupada. We take these cities for granted. We're, as Keshav Maharaj said the other day, most of us are city slickers. So we take cities for granted, what they're like. But for Prabhupada, leaving Vrindavan, and at that time, Vrindavan was small, pastoral, beautiful, and transcendental for him, and to come to these places. But how pleased Prabhupada was to be able to have that first little center where up to then he'd had to give classes elsewhere. He'd had to, in some ways, tone down his message or compromise how he was able to speak. But for the first time, he could gather devotees with only one agenda: the chanting of the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, worshipping Krishna, associating together, and being in that microcosm of a dam. And this is the incredible thing that Prabhupada did. This last week I was just reading a chapter in the 9th canto. It's the story of Mandata, one of the descendants of Ikshvaku, who had 3 sons and 50 daughters. And the story is that his 50 daughters married the rishi, Shobari Muni. And that pastime is not... We're often reminded of poor Shobari Muni meditating in the Jamuna, underwater. And he just happened to watch 2 fish who were mating. And just from that, he had the desire for that type of enjoyment. is that, somehow it rose in his heart. So he came out of the water. His meditation was broken. And he thought, yeah, I need to get married. So he went to the king, King Mandata, and said, please, I'd like to marry one of your daughters. The king said, well, my daughters are actually free to marry whoever they like. It's entirely up to them who they choose as their husband. So Shobhari Muni thinks, oh, well, they're not going to choose me. I'm old and wrinkled and, I've been doing this rishi stuff for so many years, And if he was meditating in the water, you can imagine how crinkled he'd be. So he thought, then no one's going to choose me. So using his mystic power, he gave himself this very youthful, attractive body. And he went to the palace of Mandata's daughters. And when all 50 saw him, they thought, wow, we want to marry him. So by his mystic power, actually it said by the chanting of his mantras, he was able to create palaces and beautiful accommodation and parks and everything, for all his 50 wives. And just, it was so amazing, the setup that he achieved through chanting his mantras, that King Mandata, who at that time was the king of the whole planet, looked at him and thought, wow, his opulence is even bigger than mine. It's more amazing. But in all of that, Shobhari Muni, had 10 sons from each of his wives, so 50 wives, 500 kids. And he spent many years enjoying in that situation. But at a certain point thought, oh, really? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? Is this what my aspiration was all that time ago? Have I kind of lost sight of where I'm supposed to be? So he was meditating, why on earth did this happen? And he was thinking, it's because of association. I was in the Jamuna and I was trying to be secluded, get away from humans, because humans are bad news, They're so interested in such rubbish that they would have been bad influence on me. So I went into the Jamuna. I meditated there, just thinking that I was free from all the effects of society. Then I saw these 2 fish. I associated with them, is the word that is being used. Meaning, association, I adopted their interests. I looked at them and envied their enjoyment. I let their aspirations become mine. That is the effect of association. I take on their interests. I envy their opportunities, their pleasures, and I let their aspirations become mine. So look how that went for me. So he makes this interesting statement that really you should be free from all material association. You cannot associate with humans, never mind even other entities, other creatures who are, have a mituni vrat, who have an interest in just material, particularly material sexual life. If you associate like that, you will be affected. And he said, therefore, you should take yourself away from any association. But if you have the need for association, because we all do, the idea of just living in total seclusion could be horrific. We need communication. We need interaction. We need, you know, people around us, especially in our developing stage. We're not on the level of these yogis and rishis who just cut themselves off and just live as hermits and ascetics and, you know, are absolutely comfortable and satisfied within their own meditation, themselves and Krishna. We're not in that position. We are in that situation where we do need association. So what Shribari Muni is recommending, and we're taking his recommendation very seriously because he is our emblem of someone who didn't quite get it right, if you like, first time. And who is glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam on this basis for now telling us that if you have the need for association, tat vratya, that means you should associate those who have the same vrat, the same vow, the same determination, the same inclination in spiritual life that you have. Or better, or greater than you. But those are the persons you should look out for, you know. And that's what, and Srila Prabhupada then comments on this. And he says, you know, that's why I tried to create these centers. He said, first of all, I wanted to make devotees so that I could have centers. It's interesting, Prabhupada talks about it in that way. You know, often Prabhupada would say, I need these centers in order that devotees can come, live together, chant together, be together, and get association. But in this particular purport, Prabhupada turns it the other way around. I needed to make devotees so that I could have centers. Because what is the use of... He couldn't just open a building and think, all right, well, now we've got a building, we can install the deity, job done. No. Without the devotees present, without the devotees engaging together in deity worship, in chanting, in hearing, then we haven't got a center. So Prabhupada said, I needed to make devotees in order to establish these centers. And then he says, this is rather an ambitious proposition. Now, he's writing this in the 9th canto. So we're talking 1976 going into 77. So when many, many temples are being established, and Prabhupada said this, he recognized that in those short years since he had arrived in America, in New York, that this, you're looking back and just seeing the state of this Western world, this idea that you could make devotees and open centers, yeah, that's a pretty ambitious proposition when you step off the boat with a handful of rupees, a few books, and really not knowing where you're going. It is definitely an ambitious proposition. But Prabhupada says, but it has been successful thanks to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada, looking back, was granting credit to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And this is something that devotees often feel. We may go through struggles in our services. We have projects, plans that we want to achieve for the sake of Krishna. And they don't come easily. But if we keep on trying, and then at some point we look back and think, wow, hasn't Krishna been kind? Hasn't Krishna been kind to allow this project to manifest? Hare Krishna Shishi. And in that sense, the devotee feels such gratitude. And I think actually sprinkled throughout these later cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you see little insights from Srila Prabhupada, often talking about himself, I believe. You know, how he had to leave aside his material life, how he had to engage in the preaching, and the activities that he kind of looks back and now sees, how Krishna has been with him, protecting him, helping him, fulfilling his desire to serve the mission of his own spiritual master, and in establishing these incredible centers all over the world. And just as we are hearing here in this purport about Navadvip Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham, Vrindavan Dham being identical, for Prabhupada, the centers of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness that he established all over the world are also identical to the dhams. They have the same spiritual potency. Often Prabhupada would say like that, this temple is as good as Vrindavan. Or this temple reminds me of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada wanted that even though not all of us, or not everyone in the world will have access to Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, and be able to stay there, live there, but that there should be these additional outposts of, if the dams are embassies of Vaikuntha, of Goloka, then the temples are further embassies of those dams. And we have to appreciate them in absolutely the same way that the glorification of the dam is given. We have to have that same appreciation for all our incredible centers being maintained with the blood and sweat and the tears of the devotees year after year. It's incredible. And this verse actually says some pretty heavy warning about if you go to Vrindavan and was it for sense gratification or to make a livelihood, you know, with material motivations, there is a reaction for that, and it leads a so-called devotee to a lower species. There's always a blessing connected with the dam. So even from that situation, one's spiritual life is not lost permanently, but there's certainly a reaction. And we also have to relate to our local ISKCON temple with that same mood. I'm not here for sense gratification. I'm not here for nonsense. I'm not here just to do business. You know, the Kanishta Adhikaris come to the temples and all sorts of deals are being done. Marriages are being arranged, social things set up, all sorts of things are going on. That is often a prime motivation for congregational members to gather at the temple. And it's, you know, that is the nature of the Kanishta relationship with the temple. But for the devotees who actually appreciate what Prabhupada was intending here, what is described in the verses of Bhagavatam and of Chaitanya Charitamrita, that these temples are very holy places in which the practices, the 64 practices of Krishna consciousness can be absolutely prominent. Can be, and where we can go to fully just engage in this. So, as devotees like myself living outside, we have to be very cautious. We are not bringing the material world with us when we come to the temple. We have prepared our thinking. We have meditated that whatever things I may be distracted with externally, whatever desires are material and unhelpful, I'm putting those aside now. I'm walking down Bergstrasse. I am having to think, I am now about to enter into the Dam. Let me make sure my thoughts are appropriate. Let me clear away, the silliness. Let me go in so that I am fully appreciative of the spiritual potency. Let me not bring any rubbish with me. You wouldn't bring your trash from home. Your organic composting bin, or all the rubbish that you should be taking to the recycling place. It's like, oh, I'll bring this. Bring it to the temple. We wouldn't bring any of that with us. So we don't bring any of the nonsense from our minds into the temple. We try and come in here as pure and with not empty, but actually full of eagerness to engage in the activities that are on offer, particularly Nama Sankirtanam, to really give ourselves to hearing and chanting congregationally with the devotees, to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, not just in the classes, but in our conversations that we're having with the other devotees, to hear their realizations, to share our thoughts, to create just a spiritual atmosphere like this, so that it's just Krishna, Krishna, Krishna all the time. That's our responsibility when we come here. So, allowing the temples to be attractive, wonderful places for the devotees, that becomes an important responsibility. There's a further little lesson from the story of Shobhari Muni. When he was meditating on what was the cause, he identified it very clearly as his allowing himself to associate with the mentality of these fish and to adopt that. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, and Prabhupada mentions this in the purport, that actually there is, as in many of these cases with the sages having difficulties, there's a backstory. And that backstory is when Shobhari Muni is there in the Jamuna, and Garuda comes to the Jamuna to eat fish, because that's his nature, that's his form. And who can tell the incredible benefits of offering oneself to Garuda? Wow. I mean, we're talking about the Lord's personal carrier. We're talking about an eternal associate of the Lord, not just a Vaishnava, but an eternal associate of the Lord. But what Shobhari Muni did was give shelter to a few fish. So, two things were there. One is that he actually had already identified with the plight of those fish and think, oh, these fish are enjoying their little swimming around in the river here. Why should that be taken away? Why should they lose their life? Why should they be fearful for their situation, let me give them shelter. So in that case, he had already started to identify with their needs. Not understanding the incredible blessing, wouldn't it be great if Garuda, if we were offered the opportunity, you've got a lifetime of tapasya and focus in devotional service, struggling with your mind and all your the issues, or Garuda can just come down, gobble you up and take you back to the spiritual world. Which would you go for? And if someone said, no, I'll stop, I'll protect you from Garuda, is he doing a favor? No. So he identified with the needs of these fish over the spiritual benefits that they could be getting. And in that way he had adopted their mentality, or he was now prone, vulnerable. And this is always the danger for devotees. As we try to make devotees in this world, we have to become a little friendly with them. Not all of us are in the position that we are such spiritual authorities that the people we meet will just automatically surrender. Jai, please, enlighten me. We have to make friends. We have to kind of win them over and encourage them to come to the temple to chant, and that's sometimes tricky and dangerous, because in trying to become friendly, many devotee has overstepped themselves in that regard, and has felt the influence and the effect that can have on their own spiritual life. But the other aspect that Shobhari Muni's pastime with Garuda was that in one sense he was obstructing. He was obstructing the activities of a Vaishnav, is the phrase that Prabhupada uses. So there was an offence there. He was offending an eternal associate. And that, of course, is very dangerous. So, in creating the temples as centers where devotees are fully engaged in kirtan, in chanting, in hearing, in worshipping, the most vital aspect of that are the devotees and their mentality and their pure aspirations. So we have all got the responsibility of encouraging one another to enjoy in a spiritual way, meaning that to feel the potency, to feel the benefits, to feel the love that is present within the Dham, within the temple. We have to ensure that everyone is given the best welcome, the right treatment, the right consideration, that no one is put into anxiety. In fact, that's one of the points which one is it? Oh yes, number 20. This is a don't. This is the last one of the don'ts. Neither by mind nor words should the devotee cause anxiety to any living entity, regardless how insignificant he may be. Neither by mind nor words should the devotee cause anxiety to any living entity. Now, if that's any living entity, let's put neither by mind nor words should the devotee cause anxiety to any other devotee. Regardless how insignificant we may think they are. this is the responsibility. That if we are to appreciate the value of the dhams that Krishna has manifested in Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, Dwarka and other places, then we also have to really, we are not going to appreciate those dhams if we cannot appreciate the temple dham that we are part of, that we are contributing to. Or at least let's put it another way, because sometimes the dhams are very merciful, and they are always very merciful. That I think that if we want to really appreciate the spiritual qualities of the dhams, let us be the best contributor we can to the spiritual atmosphere, purposes, and the devotees of our own local dham. I think that would be the message that I feel is coming across through this particular purport. Hare Krishna. So I think we've time just for a few points of thoughts. Maharaj, please offer corrections and amendments.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Nice points all. No corrections. You can correct me. Just back to the verse, Mathura Mandale Stiti. And Stiti, I think, means being situated. So I think you're nicely saying how we can be situated spiritually in the dham of the temple as being not non-different from the holy dham. I'm thinking about the Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan. I was fortunate to spend some time at Govardhan. There's this new retreat center there. And we did, of course, Govardhan Parikrama and Radha Kund Parikrama. And I was struck as I was being reminded that, and this is where, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami stayed, and this is where Srila Rupa Goswami stayed, and this is where Srila Kaviraj Goswami stayed, and so on. And I just wonder if they anticipated, you alluded to the present 21st century Vrindavan, how much construction has gone on. Sometimes I say it feels like it's becoming a suburb of Delhi. But I just wonder what their vision was. They're writing, following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in effect inviting everyone, come to the dham and stiti and live here. Did they really? Did they really mean that? And did they anticipate that this is what would be happening? Did Srila Prabhupada anticipate? Of course, it's so much because of Srila Prabhupada's establishing the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan that's when things really started moving, to Western devotees coming and so on. Just wondering, it's not a comment, it's a I wonder. So, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes. I think perhaps many of us wonder, how well we have served the interests of the 6 Goswamis in the way that Vrindavan has developed. There are external things. We're not going to blame devotees or Prabhupada for how things developed. When Prabhupada got the land in Ramanreti, there's a conversation that I can't remember which devotee was saying, well, it's only we've got a small parcel of land out in Ramanreti. It's way out of the town. Maybe we can have a small centre there. Prabhupada said, my problem is I cannot think small. I can only think big. So he built the Krishna Balaram Mandir, and when we first went there, it was in open fields. There was nothing. Nothing. And you could walk there just through the fields, through the trees, along the old Parikrama path, down, all the way down to the Yamuna, past Madan Mohan. It was just wide open. So, for many of us, it's tough to see so many buildings, walls, and things. And are all of these people actually Mathura Mandala Sthiti staying there, or are they holiday homes for the Delhi Wallahs? Part of the difficulty, I understand, is that the Uttar Pradesh government, they lost control of, or they lost the jurisdiction of Hardwar, Rishikesh. So that was a big earner for the state. So they needed to focus a new kind of pilgrimage area, and Mathura, Vrindavan was targeted. So that's one of the reasons why things have changed. But we still know that when you go to Vrindavan, the potency is there. And perhaps it's good that the challenge is in some ways harder for us, because when things are pastoral and pleasant, we can go into a local park here and think how pleasant and nice this is, and we might appreciate it for its material circumstances. But with Vrindavan, you always have to appreciate it for its spiritual potency. I remember the first time we crossed the boundary going into Vrindavan. The first thing I saw was a poor little dog with 3 legs kind of hopping along. And it was just a reminder that material life is tough, and when you come to Vrindavan, don't expect us to see everything perfect and it's like a vision of paradise, where the lambs and the lions are lying down together and everything is. No, it's a place where actually many souls, as described in this purport, are finishing off their material existence. Last go, last throw of the dice, last lifetime, last embodiment, and it's back to Krishna. So the Dhams will always require us to see with Shastra Chaksus, to see with a vision that is infused with our own devotion. Otherwise we cannot see the Dhams. We will not appreciate. Well, thank you, Maharaj, for stating.
Thank you so much for your first lecture, Akhandadhi Prabhu. I was wondering if it's better to stay or to go to the holy place when we are not that pure, that we don't have any inclinations for sense gratification. Is is it better to go as well, or to stay and to wait till, I don't know, Krishna takes you there, or your spiritual master takes you there? Because I also heard that actually you shouldn't go to Vrindavan by your own, because then you
sorry, you shouldn't go when?
To Vrindavan, like by your own.
Oh, by
yeah, your spiritual master, Krishna through your spiritual master should take you there. So.
Yes, I mean, Prabhupada has that famous name. You can't just get to Vrindavan by buying a ticket. And yes, I think I've always felt that it's an important aspect that to feel one has been invited to the spiritual dham, perhaps encouraged by devotees, by the temple authorities, by one's spiritual master, or because one has some engagement in service. Prabhupada was often a little worried about disciples who became kind of spiritual tourists. They would be jumping from one place to another, sometimes following him, which seems a nice thing to do. But Prabhupada was a little disturbed that they were putting that interest ahead of engagement in his mission. We have to applaud those devotees engaged in the dhams who have taken up important services consistently for years and years and years. I think that these are very specially qualified devotees, and it's one of these situations where I think it's good for devotees to discuss their aspirations. I know some devotees just thrive in their being able to spend a period, perhaps every year, in the dhams, in Vrindavan or Mayapur or wherever, in 1 month, 6 months, whatever. And for them, it's what gives them the most impetus and enthusiasm. So it's a very individual inclination, this. But we are being encouraged through this. And as Maharaj says, it isn't just saying visit Vrindavan, it's Sthiti, it's saying live in, and that's mentioned elsewhere. Mathura Vas, make it your residence. So I think my way of understanding that is that wherever we live, we should be ensuring that it's an outpost of Mathura. It's an outpost of the spiritual world. And it could be the dham, it could be the temple, or even in our own home, we have to ensure that that spiritual life is prominent, and that there is association of devotees, there is chanting, there is the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the worship of the deities. So in that way, we're also still, if not within the incredible potency of the dham, at least we are generating what can be a wonderful semblance of the same atmosphere, and that Krishna will be present and potent and appreciable within our lives.
Thank you so much.
Prabhu, you mentioned that we should not take our trash to the temple. And I wanted to ask you, sometimes it saddens me that when there is Nam Sankirtan going or Harikatha, some devotees still prefer the Prajalpa couch. So I want to ask, how can we actually improve the situation in the temple that this becomes more of a place where we focus on Krishna and his katha?
So the question is, in the temple, at times, we all engage in a little bit of prajalpa, and sometimes that can seem to be prominent. I think it starts with our own realization that this temple is special and we just cannot take it for granted. Part of the difficulty is in communities where, and I experienced this, of course, at Bhaktivedanta Manor, which was, we had 150 devotees involved. When I was temple president there, in the temple, living in the temple. It wasn't a small scene. And when everyone is engaged 24/7 within the temple, yes, there are some practical, domestic, material things that they have to attend to. So, in one part of the building, there'll be someone, trying to service their car in the car park, and then someplace else someone's trying to phone for this, that, and they will have to discuss practical things. And so it's natural when there is such a community all working and living together that, practical matters, material things which seems often which are mundane affairs have to be attended to. But we should just try and do it as simply, quickly and as practically as we can, and really feel that I don't want the particular thing that I have to discuss or organize to become something which impacts other devotees' appreciation of the spiritual environment. I don't want it to interfere with what they are coming here to hear in terms of Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. They want to hear about Krishna. They don't want to hear, my things. So I think it's consideration, isn't it? Was it Keshav Swami was talking the other day about sensitivity? Let's be sensitive to one another. Let's be empathetic. Let's appreciate that other devotees are here to get away from the material kind of scene. They want to kind of come here to experience the spiritual. So let's not be doing something or talking about something in a way that perhaps interferes with them. We may have to do something practical. Let's do it discreetly, nicely, but in a way that doesn't disturb others. And rather, when we do talk with other devotees, we're trying to talk about Krishna. We're just trying to kind of encourage each other and our meditation on Krishna. Okay, well, we better close at that point. Thank you very much. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai.
Akhandadhi Prabhu ke.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... What are you doing here?
I'm going to the retreat.
Oh, wow. Okay, that was
University is very simple.
any fully any
Anyway, it's all very simple. It's a lot of good comments. Yes, it would be a nice contribution. Yeah, thank you. Nice to see you.
Oh, no, very good to see you again.
Are you here? So you're here from
Yeah, no, I'm actually based in
Oh, it's the first time I've been here.
well, I did in here for over a year. I go back and forth.
Yeah.
But, I did all the work, but you're telling me from here.
So I'm excited. How far was the retreat?
I have not been there yet. But very good. I can't go this far.
I'll be in touch with things eventually.
All right, well, enjoy the week.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you so that I could do that.
All the latest.
That's see what the latest and my conclusion is we actually know what we're talking about.
And they don't
No, they're really those theoretical positions. That was another conference where they're more open to different views. Serious guys, neuroscience. But there's a lot of philosophy discussed. We can't get away from it. But the philosophers haven't really helped. And here is what Thomas Nagel, you know that guy. What's he like to be about?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
So he's getting on. But he gave an interesting talk on what essentially is a sort of, he called it psychophysical monism. But his idea is that the physical, biological functions and the mental functions are separate, but they're unified at a deeper level. So that's kind of atheistic Sankhya. Basically, kind of dual aspect of monism. It's sort of falls apart from Prakriti. Prakriti is generated in 2007 in that respect.
So he wasn't.
No, and that's the problem is they cannot separate mind. Because it's bad enough that you're enough trouble dealing with what our mental qualities. Our mental qualities sort of correlate to brain things, and so they think if they find enough brain correlation, they'll be able to explain. But consciousness, that's just an extra element they don't want to deal with, so they just say, well, somehow that's another mental activity. Yeah. Hari, whatever they have. None of us can get very well in the Sanskrit.
It's impressive, but yeah, so they actually was planning. But miraculous. But I think what I do, because they're also inviting to talk about harmony. So I think I'm also
I think that's, I understood, I think, the idea is to give you, if the two of you were doing that, then that kind of gives us a bit more of a focus on that topic. So yeah, I think that's, really valuable.
It's the 2 months to
Awake.
They're awake. Madhava, what is that on your shirt? All kinds of animals.
It's a lizard and a rhinoceros.
Oh, and some of them are upside down.
Yeah.
They're in ecstasy. Static rhinoceros. What's the plural of rhinoceros?
Which person designed for
Oh yeah. We have actually as a present the third part of Shyama Prabhu's. Yeah.
Oh, you have a copy?
Yes.
With you?
For you.
Very nice.
Yeah. Maybe the retreat so we don't have to carry.
Just one question. For the evening for dinner, would you like to take it before we go to Kianfa or?
We're leaving around 4.
4 okay, 4 takes around 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Getting dedicated. What if we? I can attend that. Schedule those meetings. It's not that I'm working for the retreat either. Of having 2 meals, 1 at 11. 5. But I think today, possible that maybe just before we go. John 3, yeah.
Someone thought that was some intergroup or I don't know. Enjoyed the retreat.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be really good for the Cosmo 23. Another view on the armament.
So I initial thought, my initial working title is, what was it, Vedic Cosmology, Hermeneutics of Wonder, and then a subtitle, which tree are we barking on?
All right, that's definitely intriguing.
Which hermeneutic tree are we barking on? Because that expression, barking up the wrong tree, I read a whole discussion that a person discussing animal ethics. And he analyzes that situation of an animal or a dog thinking the squirrel is in this tree.
It's jumping in. I mean, the New York conference is classic barking at the wrong tree. You know, it's or the other classic that it's the drunk looking, you know, where the key where the light is. I'm just going to have a little hunt around the room.
Is it well, Akhandadhi was feedback. Please stand up. You're sure you left there? And somebody took it.
Well, they might have thought it's getting on the way of me giving up class or something. Oh, I see. Yes.
Oh, it's funny in the corner. Okay.
I will take a little breakfast and then I'll I've got work for the EP today and we're working on the exhibits for the museum.
Right.
So that plays into this the hermeneutics issue. Because at the moment, I won't say we're barking at the wrong tree, but we're certainly only barking at one tree. You know?
Well, it's kind of my thought is can't we sort of open up and say there's actually a lot of trees, so many traditions, so it might be useful to Buddhists, the Jains, they also have trees. Siddhartha acknowledges that in his book. Anyway,
I think it's a very good thing, very helpful. I think that will go down well. Thank you.
First night you sleep good?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, you came from England?
Yesterday I came from Slovenia.
It's raining much, but I go swim every morning. Yes. In the morning, sometimes there are devotees here, and I think it's Ganges. With drugs.
You swim in the lake?
In the sea. Yes. Zurich Sea. Zurich Sea, yes. And yes.
It must be quite healthy.
Yeah. Maya works. Maya works. But it's different when you make a Dutch. When I go to the sea swimming, now it's raining this night, the water is different. Water is different. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Sorry. Nice to see you.